I don't know who briefed him or how it came out. He gave us an amazing offer. He said, let's have a joint conference of the, who are the three people who are involved with us? Can anybody name us? Yes.
Army, Air Force, Navy.
That's one section. What is the second? That's Army only? Very true. And we are the third. We are the third. Quartermaster General or Army is one and the same thing.
Defense Secretary.
No, it's all on the one same thing. If UMG is sitting, Defense Secretary has no power to it. Yes, so these were the three powers who deal with us. The Quartermaster, you'll be surprised, Defense Secretary does not deal our files. He just marks our files, which are very personal to him. He doesn't even know what is happening in any of these. He doesn't even know there are 62 cantonments in the country. Because that's not his subject. So Defense Secretary's got nothing to do. The hierarchy says it is the DG lands, and there is a special land officer which is equivalent to an under secretary. But he also is very dependent on the DG only. And then it comes the Quartermaster General of India. Not even the Army, not even the Navy, not even the Air Force. And then we. So he promised that, Mr. Das, you show me results in this convention of number games, and I guarantee you that you are having your joint conference with all the three delegations sitting, with all documents, research, whatever you want to say, in my office at South Block. Is it achieving? We speak for 3 minutes. Please, that's a request. Let's not get into an embarrassing position. 3 minutes means 3 minutes. Nobody will go above 5 if the issue is one. Second, if there is a very individual issue, because we knew that we are not getting a stage here, the hall here, which is big enough to just enough most of the people. So we picked up a second hall up there called the Deputy Speaker Hall. Am I right? Or this is the Deputy Speaker Hall. So we thought as much that there are many people who have come to actually meet me for the first time and get to know what actually we did in other cantonments when we used to tour there, and we used to actually share our documents. So anybody whom Mr. Deepak, who will be conducting this entire conference here now, would actually guide bungalow owners or residents or civil areas or even legally only up towards the hall where I am there. But before that, a general, we realized very importantly, so that order is there with us. So once that order is there, if you talk to some CEOs, GEOs, they would say two things. How your cantonment was made. The British conquered it. One. Second, it is skeeted to the Britishers. The skeet means that the original Raja of that very cantonment or that very territory did not have a son. So they did not allow him to, that time it was called, now we call it baptize or we call it Godh le lena, that is time it was called Sanan. So they did not let the Raja to have a child from any of his family member as the eldest son to become the hierarchy king. Well, this treaty of Exeat does exist. It is there. We've read it. We were reading a book on treaties in India, and there we fished out this treaty. It was made somewhere in 1809 or 10. Treaty of Exeat, jo padhi? 11 or something. Otherwise, not a single inch of any of the cantonments, can you imagine if I say, was ever and ever acquired by the British Army. Not a single inch of your cantonment. I can prove it for my Ambala camp. I would want that You all prove it for your cantonment. In Ambala, not a single inch of land was owned by the Britishers or the British Army, which moved in 1843. So the same situation is in all the cantonments. If in 1843 they didn't do anything, how could have they done it later or earlier? It couldn't have been possible. Yes, there were some Rajas who actually gave in their rights. What was it? The Britishers were smart, they were educated. When they actually started moving into various townships of this country, they realized that our Indian Rajas were actually Rajas. खजाने खाली और राजा की रियासत पूरी तैयार. Coffers were empty. It is written in a book. There used to be no lagan being paid to the Raja in his coffers. So they said, "यार, ये Raja रियासत कहानी क्या है? What is this story?" So basically, Britishers, you'll be surprised. They had come to earn in India. They were not interested in your land or anything. Make money on that land and move out. That's all. So they didn't want to buy a property of Mr. X or Mr. Y. So they only wanted to earn from this. How could they earn from this? So say, for the first time in India after the Akbari system, you'll be surprised, a lagan was imposed. Land revenue. I'll just show you if you can see this map. This map is of 1831, British Parliament documents from the library. That time we were I would call myself, we were very innocent because we didn't know how to actually flip this document from the library. Later on we became smart, that is the other one. This one had to be drawn by Deepakji and Mai by visiting that same library at least more than about 7-8 times, memorizing where was the color embarkment. The colors which you see, which comes under the Bengal presidency, and the one in yellow is Madras. And the one in red, or which you may call pink either, is Bombay presidency. You see a little scattered white area in this, in 1831. These are those independent states which the Britishers never, till 1831-33, ever moved in also. These were independent native states. It's written here. The ones in green. And the area which is in white is totally that area where Britishers had nothing to do. Nothing. No rule, no movement, no army movement, nothing. That's there. To prove this, there is a document, there is a written statement which is cut down here. It's a document from Dehradun. What is that term? Dehradun office is? Survey of India, I'm sorry. My work pressure is growing. So this is lying in the Survey of India, Dehradun. Another map on that side which shows you that territory which now Britishers said is British India. And you see some yellow areas there. Those yellow areas were, which again the Britishers said, these are independent native states. Very fortunately, I don't know about much area because I was very keen on seeing Belgaum. Because Belgaum here was in the white area. It remained in white here also, and it remained in yellow there also. I requested no mobile service. So these were the areas which were again said that the yellow areas are not British government, or the rules were never applicable on them. Any rule which had to be made applicable on them had to be notified for that area. So this is how I would just like to show you how India came up to be from 3 presidencies to an 1897 order by the Queen of England that the 3 armies of the British merge into one and it becomes a united British India. So this happened in 1897. Immediately I'll go. I think we all people know GGO 179 1836 very well. Am I right? Because that is the hammer on our head. Did anybody read it properly? On the very first para it was written, it is only for Bengal presidency. The very third line of it says, for Bengal presidency. Read the second, third para of it. It says it must be registered. Do we ever get it vetted in the court of law? No, we don't get it. We've never asked this question. If this GGO is meant for Bengal presidency, why? Because actually we didn't know there were 3 presidencies. So we don't know Bengal as such. We don't know Madras as such. So for that reason, I welcome these guests, but I'm a little sorry for the small the area placements. We are getting it adjusted. We were not able to get the bigger hall, which is carry forward till 1873, then 1887, a bit of changes here and there. And in section 18 of it, it is written civil cantonments. Now, if you read that chapter of civil cantonments, you see no word, nowhere it has been written that there is going to be anything like the word old grant or grants under GGO 179 or something like this. It's not written in a book which is of 1855. 1836 and 1855 is not a big period. And it was the Britishers who were only getting these books printed. So they could have written that all grants in these civil cantonments or cantonments are going to be given under the GGO 179. Because these were no grants, so they were nothing of this was written. But simultaneously, generally what happens is, we would only like to read what we want. We're very selfish. So we would only like to read the chapter or the section 18 in the cantonment. But we people, Deepakji and myself, we were more sure that no, let's read something else also. So we read the military cantonment chapter also. And on reading that, we were surprised to see an order of 1810 of PWD department, because there was no NES at that time, had been reinforced in 1855 that all grants given to military officers, it's very important please, will be of fixed size. Grants have to be of fixed size. I remember that word when it came. Yes, I must apologize for one thing, yes. I forgot one name because he was our mentor. I must apologize for that. It just came to me because myself and Deepakji, 3 of us used to actually sit on class together. That's Major Chauhan from Ambala. Major Deepak Chauhan. He was an army officer and he is there yet now. So he used to actually, we used to sit down and interpret what is this fixed size of grants. So we started working on it. And a book came across me in, I think, I don't remember when. I went to Major Chauhan and I bought Deepakji, where even we have now as proof that these sizes were of this much. Can you imagine? Any 2 neighbors sitting here? Okay, we are there. My neighbor is there. No, I'll put it on myself only. Ritu Baji is sitting there. Just can you get up? He's my neighbor at Ambala. And if he remembers a little dimension of his houses, of his bungalow, they are not what are of mine. Am I right? They are a little different. So if he were a grant, we had to be of a fixed size. So that means we are not a grant. One thing is proved. Now what are we is to be solved out. Because I'll be very honest, this research pinnacle has come. where we can very easily stand up and say, if we go to the courts and start proving that we are owners, I assure you, you will not be able to prove yourself as owners. And you will lose. You will not be able to prove yourself as owners. So once you are not able to prove yourself owner, a judgment came across me sometime. It's under the, I think, Land Revenue Act, section 45 or 50, which reads, if you could not prove yourself as owners on a case against Union of India or government, it deems to be the property of government. So there is no question going ahead with that, because I would have showed you down by holding your registry. I think this is Lieutenant Colonel Jalnawala sitting with us, ma'am. He called me up yesterday that he's reaching. Okay, we'll have a delegate if he reaches at the right time. A person who's in the bungalow by himself. Lieutenant Colonel Jalnawala? Sir, yes, he is there. So we must, I would like that, yes, he is the living legend of a document of a bungalow which he owns from 1861. Is anybody older than him? 1861. It's a document registered under which act? Was TP Act made at that time? Transfer of Properties Act? No. When was Transfer of Properties Act made? 1892. Okay. So how come a registry under TP Act or any act of 1861? That means there must be an act then also. Where is that act? That is where the problem is, that we actually don't know our original, what, how and how the Britishers. It is a saying in Indian, I don't know how much I am truthful on it. This is when a child born there is take birth, he is with a pen in his hand. So he's got brains, he's got everything, now he only has to write laws for everybody. So people in England or people when they were ruling us, these Britishers were very smart and they knew how to create this cobweb. Maybe from 1792 or maybe from any date. They knew create this cobweb, and these people who are actually giving us the bungalow or the property would one day after 30 years or 2 generations will forget, did we actually own this? They knew this. And that's why if you see, can anybody tell me how many cantonment acts were made in India by the Britishers? Anybody there? Any? Come on, let's not shy away, yeah, please. We're all one, yeah. Maybe one is white-haired or one is a little more smarter, but now how many acts? Even the department didn't have the copy of this. They refused, either they refused to give it to us. This is the first act passed by the Britishers for these cantonments. You know why it was passed in 1864? Why not before? Called the Indian Council Act. Most of us don't even know about it. And this act even today exists. This act very clearly says, any order passed by the Governor General. To understand that GGO needs to be, it has to be promulgated into a notification for your cantonment. That's also very important. For your cantonment, not that a journalized it was passed in Bengal. I'll read you a section of 1864 here, which will clearly prove these doubts through. That any act, rule or laws or GGOs made, these were called regulations actually at that time, because there were no acts as such. The Britishers were not making acts. They were only making regulations. And they used to make these regulations, try them for 6 months. If they didn't work, the regulation used to be demolished and the next regulation used to be made. So if you read some old books, you will find an Act of Regulation 17, an Act of 1852, 17 regulations. So that means there were only 17 sections in those. So it's very important to understand that 1836 dies in April 1837. Now you ask your department or your anybody, was it notified for my cantonment? Where is that notification? Now maybe the department would get up and say, archives document, we don't have it. Well, yes.
It is in 1885.
What is it?
1885 is the right one.
Navigation. 1 minute. Now what happens is, yes, the notification of 1836 may not be or may be, it's lost or whatever it is. Britishers were honest. Anything they wanted to do, they did it through rule and law. They again wrote it in a book. They again wrote it. Every act which they passed in the early days and after 1857, which we generally all know as historians or normal Indians, that was the Ghadar period in India. And most of the cantonments or because these were the cantonments. You know, we are talking of that era where New Delhi Parliament House was not existing. 1911 the Parliament House came up. So we are much prior to that. You're in my bungalow and Mr. Lieutenant Colonel Jalnawala bungalow exists from 1860. So how many years prior to even the Delhi Parliament House? So the question is this, what actually did the Britishers do? They kept imbibing the already pre-made acts into the new ones. So that 1910 notification of fixed grants also was reunified in 1855 Army Regulation. Again reunified in the 1873 Army Regulation. And this kept going on, this process. So grants and GGOs, or whatever they say, if you only precisely go back home today and you have a printout, who all are on mail with me, I've been mailing these GGOs to them. Just read it very peacefully. So many places it will tell you it needs to be registered.